She grew up in the shadow of a spiritual giant, but no amount of sermons could prepare Sarah Jakes Roberts for this. As the storm surrounding Bishop T.D. Jakes and his ministry sent shockwaves through the faith community, Sarah was left not just as a daughter, but as a witness to a painful unraveling. Now, with raw emotion and trembling honesty, she's finally breaking her silence. Through tears, she reveals the untold truth about what really happened behind the scenes, about the weight of legacy, the betrayal no one saw coming, and the personal cost of carrying a name millions revere. This is more than just a scandal. This is the heartbreak behind the headlines. You won't believe what she just revealed, and why her words are sending shockwaves through the faith community. When your last name is Jakes, you're not just a name, you're a symbol of spiritual authority, global influence, and unrelenting pressure. For Sarah Jakes Roberts, that legacy has been both a platform and a burden. As the daughter of the legendary Bishop T.D. Jakes, she's inspired millions through her ministry, Women Evolve, rising as a bold, modern voice for women in faith. But behind her powerful presence, a storm has been quietly brewing. Not in the pulpit, but in her soul. While controversy and criticism swirled around Bishop Jakes in recent months, Sarah remained silent, until now. And what she just shared has peeled back the curtain on a deeply personal battle. In a vulnerable podcast appearance and raw social media posts, Sarah finally addressed the whispers and the weight. She didn't just speak about her father's scandal, she exposed the inner turmoil, the heartbreak of loyalty, and the crushing conflict between public faith and private pain. Her confession wasn't a statement, it was a cry for understanding, a glimpse into the emotional cost of ministry, and a moment that will redefine how we see the Jakes family forever. What she revealed didn't just spark headlines, it sparked heartbreak. Her words left fans in tears, critics speechless, and longtime followers wondering what truly unfolded behind the pulpit's polished surface. In today's video, we're peeling back every layer of this unfolding story. We'll uncover the truth behind the swirling controversy surrounding Bishop T.D. Jakes, the accusations, the whispers, the spiritual storm few saw coming. But more importantly, we'll examine how his daughter, Sarah Jakes Roberts, carried the weight of it all, first in silence, and now, in a raw and emotional public response that's capturing national attention. This isn't just about church politics. It's about the collision of faith, family, and legacy. Sarah's response isn't simply a defense or a denial, it's a reflection of the pain and pressure that comes with being born into ministry greatness. Through her words, we're seeing not only the cracks behind the curtain, but the resilience of a woman who has been forced to navigate public scrutiny, private grief, and spiritual confusion all at once. This moment is more than a scandal, it's a turning point in how we view leadership in the Black church, and a gut-wrenching reminder that even the most admired families are fighting battles no one ever sees. This is when it gets real, so stay put. Bishop T.D. Jakes has been one of the most well-known and respected individuals in American Christianity for more than 40 years. His influence goes well beyond the pulpit, he has written best-selling books, produced Hollywood movies, and founded the Potter's House in Dallas. However, high visibility is accompanied by severe scrutiny, which recently became intense. First, there were financial inquiries. Concerns regarding the usage of the church's money were voiced by longtime detractors and former members. Social media posts raised concerns about whether donations were going toward upscale lifestyles or back into the community. Bishop Jakes then appeared to make remarks that many saw as politically tinged and possibly even manipulative toward his flock in a video that went viral. The internet went crazy after that clip appeared on sites like YouTube and TikTok X, which was once Twitter. However, it didn't end there. Documents and emails purportedly related to poor management and domineering conduct inside Potter's House leadership were made public by an ex-employee who chose to remain anonymous. Even though independent sources haven't confirmed these documents, they have gone viral and raised grave worries regarding spiritual abuse and internal operations. Allegations included accusations that Sarah Jakes Roberts herself was drawn into internal power battles inside the church, that staff members were punished for asking concerns, and that pressure to maintain appearances over authenticity was present. All of a sudden, the Jake family was being criticized for more than simply their spiritual leadership. As a brand, they were being criticized. Several followers found this to be terrible. For many black believers, Bishop Jake had been a father figure. Millions of people have been brought out of emotional and mental darkness by his teachings on empowerment, business, and healing. It was inconceivable to even entertain the possibility that these accusations might be true. However, Sarah remained silent during the online uproar over Bishop Jake. She didn't share anything. It wasn't anything she preached. She never defended nor denounced her father. Furthermore, that quiet simply encouraged conjecture. Was she injured? Was there something she was concealing? Or did she wait for the ideal opportunity? Well, that time arrived. We'll examine the precise moment Sarah Jakes Roberts finally opened up in Chapter 2, as well as the tears that spoke volumes more than any words could. The public awaited, wanted, and pleaded for Sarah Jakes Roberts to say something, anything, when the Bishop T.D. Jake controversy reached a fever pitch. They were unaware, however, that a storm was lurking beneath her stillness. Sarah's breakthrough occurred as she was sitting in front of a small studio audience while recording her podcast live. Clad in delicate clothing, her eyes brimming with passion, she gazed into the camera and spoke the words that silenced the entire room. Covering up sorrow you haven't properly processed is not the same as protecting someone you love. Then she stopped and started crying. There was no press release. It wasn't a fancy reel on Instagram. This was unadulterated, human, and raw. For the first time, Sarah admitted that the discussions about her father had had a profound impact on her and that she had opted for silence because, as she put it, she was attempting to survive it. People believe that because we are leaders, we are immune to being broken, she continued. But the child in me wasn't ready to talk, so I had to wallow in my own suffering. I wasn't prepared to deal with what people were saying about me, my family, and my dad. Not because she provided solutions, but rather because she was honest. The room exploded in cheers. Sarah acknowledged that the previous several months had put her to the test in unexpected ways. She talked about how she found it difficult to strike a balance between her father's loyalty and the mounting demand to react in public. It's difficult when your hero is human, and it's even more difficult when the world is waiting to crucify him before they hear the whole truth, she once remarked. It wasn't just the emotion that made the moment so potent. It was the clarity. Sarah wasn't making a defense or denying anything. She was making a complicated confession. The conflict of simultaneously being a human being, a leader, a daughter, and a public figure. She discussed the late-night phone conversations she had with her father. They both prayed, wept, and sought to comprehend God's work. She disclosed that some of their family's discussions were painful, challenging, and essential. This was more than just a vulnerable moment. For those who watched, it marked a turning moment in their lives. For the first time, they recognized Sarah as a daughter in agony rather than merely as a preacher or influential figure. She didn't cry out of weakness. Particularly in a society where leaders are frequently viewed as untouchable, they were revolutionary. Even if she didn't provide everyone with all the information they were looking for, what she did provide was more impactful than any headline. Grace encased in truth. Here's the twist, though. Sarah's emotional disclosure caused a whole new round of criticism once the show aired. She talked too much, according to some, and too little, according to others. Following Sarah Jakes Roberts' moving podcast appearance, the video quickly went viral, being clipped, shared, and analyzed on various platforms. Instagram Reels showed her confessing with tears in her eyes. Within hours, YouTube reactors started posting their interpretations of the TikTok discussion, which was rife with interpretation. The responses were mixed, as was to be expected. The response actually demonstrated how splintered the religious community had grown as a result of this dispute. Her devoted followers, who viewed her vulnerability as a daring display of spiritual maturity, were on one side. They praised her integrity, her self-control, and her refusal to share private information in order to win over the public. Comments such as, "This demonstrates true leadership." "She made no defense or denial." "It's sufficient that she told us the truth." "Pain sometimes requires room more than a microphone." The video was reposted in support by pastors including Dr. Anita Phillips and Dr. Darius Daniels, as well as gospel musicians like Jonathan McReynolds, who reminded followers that leaders also experience pain. Women, especially those in ministry, expressed a great deal of empathy after realizing that Sarah's emotional moment mirrored their own unspoken challenges. On the other hand, things quickly became ugly. She was criticized for diverting and for using emotional appeal to divert attention from the important issues. Some said she was evading responsibility by using evasive language. Some openly questioned her spiritual purity, implying that she was more concerned with upholding her father's reputation than with standing up for what was right. Sarah cried, according to a well-known Christian YouTuber, but she didn't elaborate. Where is the openness? Where is the remorse? Better is due to the church. To make matters worse, some started looking into her background. They sought to use her past traumas as evidence that she was never a good leader, bringing up her divorce and teen pregnancy. It was character assassination, not merely criticism. Sarah, however, said nothing. She ignored the criticism for more than a week following her podcast. Not a single tweet, comment, or correction. She fell silent once more. This time, however, the stillness appeared deliberate rather than a sign of dread. She let the storm to pass. According to ministry insiders, she retreated during this period, holding secret prayer calls with her Woman Evolved team, avoiding public appearances, and even delaying a planned speaking engagement in order to, as one source put it, grieve in private before speaking in public again. Here's the twist, though. She was not broken by the response. She was magnified. The number of podcast subscribers to Woman Evolve increased in the days after the criticism. Her views on YouTube tripled. Women from all over the world started to share their own accounts of feeling ignored in church settings, attempting to reconcile faith and suffering, and defending imperfect family members. Inadvertently, Sarah had started a movement and a discussion about what it means to be faithful in the gray zones, to love someone while holding them responsible, and to speak the truth but still paying respect to your childhood parents. Bishop Jake was no longer the only topic of discussion. The topic of discussion was how the contemporary church handles flaws. However, the question remained in the backdrop of everything. Did Sarah have something to hide? What was meant by her statement that, "the little girl in me wasn't ready to speak"? Sarah Jakes Roberts was a giant's daughter long before she ever took the stage herself. Her last name was associated with pressure, expectations, and public scrutiny from the moment she was able to walk. Bishop T.D. Jakes, her father, was more than just a pastor. He was a man who packed arenas, a cultural icon, and a father figure to millions of people. Sarah, however, wasn't a follower at home. As a daughter attempting to define herself, she watched her father balance celebrity, power, and faith. And from the beginning, her existence served as an example of how suffering can flourish in an environment of visibility devoid of privacy. Sarah got pregnant when she was just 13 years old. In the history of her family, it was one of the most well-reported events. The story was carried by Christian tabloids. Whispers came from pulpits all around the nation. People made judgments. While several gave shame, others offered prayers. Pregnancy would be a private subject for most teenagers. It was a scandal connected to Jake's legacy for Sarah. And the baby's birth wasn't the end of the shame. For years, it plagued her relationships, interfered with her ministry, and made her doubt her own value. She has already discussed how she felt like the family let them down in sermons and interviews. At the same time as her father preached to lots about future and motive, she turned into secretly battling despair, low 6BA8F6984F70C7AC4038C462A50 and the experience that her life could never align with the call placed on her call. And right here's in which it gets even more complex. Sarah wasn't just looking to heal. She was seeking to heal while being watched. Every mistake magnified. Every step judged. Each misstep interpreted as rise up. Even as she commenced finding her footing, writing books, launching meetings, and preaching across the globe, some human beings in no way permit her outgrow the picture of the 13-year vintage female who allowed the bishop down. So, while she sat down currently and stated, the little lady in me wasn't geared up to talk. It wasn't pretty much the current controversy. It turned into approximately a lifetime of being informed to sit still, be strong, and guard the pulpit, although it hurt. In fact, Sarah's tears have been a launch years inside the making. She had covered for her own family, for the church, for the photo of black Christian perfection. And now, as a grown lady along with her personal ministry, she was no longer willing to hold that silent burden. But, she in no way dishonored her father. She in no way exposed non-public details, by no means accused, by no means raged. Instead, she modeled a type of recovery that's not often seen in public ministry. Accountability with love, reality with grace, pain without revenge. But this brings up a far larger verbal exchange that the church nonetheless hasn't fully answered. What takes place to preachers' children whilst the platform will become a prison? When your parents' calling will become your trauma? While the strain to protect your family's legacy charges you your peace? And extra importantly, what happens while you finally say sufficient? In a world in which public photo often takes precedence over personal restoration, Sarah Jakes Roberts chose a different course. She did not rush to protect, did not try to repair the narrative. Rather, she let the tears communicate. No longer only for her, but for each daughter, each preacher's kid, each woman of religion who's ever needed to convey ache in silence. The talk surrounding Bishop T.D. Jake may additionally have commenced the verbal exchange, but Sarah Jakes Roberts' response converted it into something deeper. This wasn't about scandal. This changed into about generational wounds. About getting to know to like someone absolutely at the same time as additionally telling the fact. Approximately stepping out of someone else's shadow, no longer to dishonor them, but to polish your personal mild. She reminded us that non-secular leaders are still human. That structures do not erase pain, and that from time to time God does His great work through our broken locations. And let's be honest, her strength failed to come from how perfectly she handled the instant. It came from how without a doubt she walked through it. So, what can we take from this? Perhaps it is time we stopped awaiting our leaders to be flawless. Maybe it is time we gave area for grief, for process, for complexity. Perhaps, simply maybe, it is time we discovered that reality and love can exist in the equal breath. Sarah Jakes Roberts isn't just surviving her father's controversy, she's growing through it. And in doing so, she's leading us into a brand new kind of church, one wherein recuperation is holy and tears are prophetic. What do you reflect on? Consideration on Sarah's response. Turned into she too gentle, or was she precisely what the religion community wished on this moment of tension? Drop your thoughts in the feedback. We need to listen from real voices, no longer simply headlines. If this story moved you, if it made you mirror on your family, your faith, or your healing journey, like this video. It enables us reach others who want to peer this fact. Join Big Name Secrets and Techniques for extra raw, real, and revealing testimonies approximately faith, scandal, and the people at the back of the systems. And recollect to percentage this video due to the fact a person out there's nevertheless wearing silent pain and they need to realize they are not by myself.